We seem to be getting a lot of contracts lately that have to do with an assignment. What on earth is an assignment? An assignment is when a buyer goes under contract with a seller, but that buyer that signs the initial purchase and sale agreement has no intention of actually living in the property. There are other circumstances when a buyer assigns it to somebody else, but generally speaking, they then find a buyer, a second buyer, who is actually going to live in the property, and they assign their position in the contract with the seller to the person who is actually going to live in the property. They assign the contract to another buyer. So today's video is just a brief video. This could be a really, really long one, but this is just an awareness video to bring your awareness regarding some forms and special stipulations with respect to the Georgia Association of Realtors contract package having to do with an assignment. Hi, everybody. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta, and just want to share with you again, I'm not going to go in depth how to fill out these forms, but I just want to make you aware that there are forms out there when you are on the buyer side and when you are on the seller side. So let me jump in. I'd love your questions below. Love to hear your experience with assignment contracts, and please subscribe to the channel and share this video with an agent who could benefit from this information. So let me share my screen. And again, I am just going to focus on the Georgia Association of Realtors, or GAR contract package. So in the Georgia Association of Realtors purchase and sale agreement F201, under paragraph C4, other provisions, C4F, entire agreement modification and assignment. Well, it says in here, this is not Georgia law, this is a contract provision. And it says this agreement may only be assigned SS 611. What's that, Dana? Hang on and I will show you. May only be assigned or listed for sale in a multiple listing service by the buyer prior to closing with the written approval of the seller, which may be withheld for any reason or no reason. Any assignee shall fulfill all the terms and the conditions of this agreement, including but not limited to the obligation to pay the compensation owed by the assignor. So that's the first thing to know, is the GAR contract is not assignable without the seller's written permission. How does a seller give written permission? Well, the Georgia Association of Realtors has us covered with a special stipulation, and that's a hint here to you as an agent, special stipulation 611. So let's look at that special stipulation. This is in the GAR contract package, and 610 is an old one. 611 I believe it came out in 2023. But 611 states, the title of it is Seller Consents to Assignment of Purchase and Sale. And it's just a short and sweet sentence that says, seller consents to buyer assigning this agreement to another buyer, assignee, and having assignee become the buyer thereunder. So now, while we're here, let me go ahead and read this 610, which is had been in our contract package for a while. Except where the seller is either providing owner financing to the buyer to purchase the property, or buyer is assuming an existing loan on the property for which the seller remains liable, this agreement may be assigned by buyer. In such event, assignee and buyer shall remain jointly and severally obligated to perform the terms and conditions of the agreement. Again, this is a previous special stipulation that has been available for a long time. This verbiage in the GAR purchase and sale agreement is relatively new. That's why there is some repetition in Special Stipulation 610 and the 2025 version of the purchase and sale agreement. Nevertheless, when you either go under contract or buy an amendment, the seller must give written permission that the buyer can assign the contract. So that's on the seller side. Now, what I want to bring to your awareness of as a buyer's agent is on the buyer's side. When you are working with a buyer, typically an investor, who is going to assign the contract to another buyer who's going to live in the home, you would want to be aware of this Georgia Association of Realtors form, GAR F279, Assignment of Purchase and Sale Agreement Rights. And again, I'm not going to go in depth how to fill this out. This video would be too long, but you fill it out with the date, the original buyer who is the assignor, and the end buyer or new buyer who is the assignee. And you reference the contract and the property address. You fill in an assignment price. So basically, the end buyer who's going to live there pays the one who secured the property, the assignor pays to take over their position in the contract. So you negotiate through that. This is acceptance of assignment, warranty of parties, assignment compensation. Now, this is compensation that goes to the brokers if there is a broker working with the assignee and the broker working with an assignor. So make sure you read through that and understand that. And it references what happens with the earnest money. And if the earnest money gets returned after it's assigned, it goes to the assignee. And I have done another video on that. I will link that below. Now, this is the assignee's contact information. Assignee's broker, if the assignee is working with a broker. Now, this document is only signed by the assignee and the assignor. Again, the assignor is the original buyer who's under contract with the seller. And this assignee is the person who is going to most likely end up living in the home. Nowhere on here does the seller sign. This is nothing to do between either of those buyers and the seller. So this is for you buyer's agents working with the assignor and the assignee. You need to be aware of this form and get this completed. Then, once the assignment is done, GAR has another form, F280. Now, you would notify the seller that there is a new person with whom they are going to be dealing for the remainder of the contract. So this is notice to seller of assignment of the purchase and sale agreement. And again, it references the purchase and sale agreement. It references the original buyer and the name of the seller and the property address. Original buyer having the right to assign the agreement, and remember that right was given with that special stipulation 611, does hereby give the seller notice that the original buyer has assigned the agreement and all buyer's rights and obligations to, and you spell out and you give reference to the name of the new buyer who's actually going to go to closing. And it specifically states who will step into the shoes of the original buyer and become the buyer under this agreement. And it gives all the contact information of the new buyer. And this is signed by the original buyer and the new buyer. The seller does not have to sign it because, again, it is a notice. So it's signed by the new buyer, by the original buyer, assignor and assignee, and it is sent to the seller because it is notice to the seller. So again, there is a lot involved with assignment and rights and commission and earnest money and qualification and sellers. If you do give permission to the original buyer to assign the contract, you might want to make sure, have some verbiage in there about getting a loan commitment letter, a pre-qualification letter on the assignee, so forth and so on. There are other things to consider negotiating in this situation if a seller does give assignment rights to a buyer. But you buyer's agents working with investors, remember the GAR purchase and sale is not assignable without the seller's written permission, and they don't have to give it. So I hope this contract tip helped you out to bring your awareness of some other documentation that is designed to protect our public, protect you as the agent, and protect your brokers with all of these disclosures. And I welcome your comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education. Bye. If you like that video, check out the one here. If you like the content on this entire channel, please click here to subscribe. I try to take even the most complicated of real estate situations and make them crystal clear. See what I did there? Real estate made crystal clear. Thank you guys so much for watching.